Hey there, folks. This is DMC Jedi Man, or should I say DMC Indiana Jones. Welcome back to my channel. Uh, as you can see, I'm attired in my best indie thread, for I have just come back from Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. This is going to be one of two reviews I'm doing. This is going to be the spoiler-filled review, because I want to get all my thoughts out first. I figure it'll be easier to do this one first and then do the spoiler-free one, since I don't need to be anywhere near detailed with that. So, if you have not seen Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny yet, then stop what you're doing and go watch it, because it's a terrific film, and then come back and watch this. But for those of you who have decided that they don't care about the spoilers, or for those of you who have seen it and want to hear the full in-depth thoughts, continue forward. Also, don't forget, if you like my content, be sure to like and subscribe and hit the bell icon to stay notified. So let's start in on this. So, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny is I guess you'd call it a legacy sequel film. You know, it takes place in the same universe as the others, and I mean all the others. Crystal Skull is canon to this. They don't really bring it up much, but there's a couple things that happen that show you that it is indeed canon, which is unfortunate in my opinion. I rather dislike Crystal Skull and would have preferred there be no mentions of it, so it could have maybe stood as the fourth film, but it's indeed the fifth film. Anyway, so the film starts off in 1944 with a young Indiana Jones, and I say young by today's standards, having been captured by Nazis. Again, it's Indy versus the Nazis. He just can't escape those guys. And they did a wonderful job de-aging Harrison Ford for this. Like, you can tell sometimes when it comes to CGI de-aging, sometimes it looks really bad, really janky or fake. This looks good, folks. This looks very good. So the Nazis have captured Indy, who was there looking for the spear that pierced Christ's side, drew his blood. And apparently the Nazis have it, though it turns out it's actually a fake, and thus not really that important for this film. What the Nazis do have, though, is, I forget what they called it, like the Archelium or something like that, but it's basically, part of this contraption that if the Nazis get both halves to it and put it back together, they can travel through time, or at least that's what they believe that it does. So they've got one half on this train, and, there's this great sequence at the beginning where they've got Indy captured, and they actually set him up to be hung, but at the same time, the Allies are attacking, and a bomb drops through the floor, and it blows everything up, and Indy, gets set free thanks to it, and he ends up, going after the train. There's a nice short thrilling car chase with a couple motorcycles, but he makes it onto the train, rescues his buddy who, was on the train as well, and the train ends up, getting attacked by these same allies, and this machine gun gets stuck in a position where it's firing at the train when it's going around a curve, so it's just chewing it all up. The action is intense, the music is swelling. John Williams is back once again for the score, and boy, oh boy, is it good to hear John Williams' music again. Indy and his friend, who I'm drawing a blank on the name. My thoughts are racing a mile a minute, but they end up on trying to get off the train. Especially once the Allies blow up the bridge, and in the ensuing chaos, you think the main this Nazi scientist guy, you think he's been killed. The half of the Dial of Destiny gets knocked off the train, and you figure it's lost. But Indy and his friend jump off just in time. And then, fast forward, to nowadays, considering that I believe the Apollo 11 mission just finished, so I think that puts this in the 60s, like 1969, I think. I could be wrong on that, but I'm thinking that it's the first mission to the moon that happened. And Indy's, professor, and he's actually on his last day, retiring, and he seems to be alone. There's this scene in his apartment where he wakes up, and it has a thing that looks like it reveals that Mutt Williams died. We find out later that I guess he went to fight in a war and died, and Indy and Marion divorced, and that really sucks. But anyway, Indy's at his professor job. He's doing the last class retirement, and this girl shows up to his lecture, and she knows the answer. She's really into it. Turns out that it's actually his goddaughter who is looking for information about Archimedes' thing. That she wants his help, and more importantly, she wants the half of the dial that he supposedly has, which at first, he claims it's gone, but she finally weasels it out of him that it's not destroyed, and she ends up getting it from him. And at the same time, some bad guys that are led by the same Nazi that Indy was fighting on the train, though he tries to deny it at first, but it's definitely revealed by the end. It is indeed him, but he and some cohorts, have shown up because they want to, get this thing for themselves. They kill some of Indy's colleagues there, and this begins a thrilling chase through a parade. There's, guns blazing, lots of beautiful old cars, a lot of action through side streets, and eventually Indy ends up on a horse, and he actually takes this horse into a subway. He's on subway tracks, and there's a train coming towards him, and he's, galloping on the horse. He manages to jump onto the other side of the tracks, and then there's a train behind him, and he just narrowly makes it onto the platform, and he gets away from the bad guys. The girl gets away, by going through rooftops and getting into the crowd. But Indy, he's decided that he's got to figure things out because he's now framed for murder because, like I said, they killed some of his, his colleagues, and the blame has been put on Indy. And Solo returns! Solo returns to help Indy get out of the country because he's got to go to not, I want to say Turinston or something like that, where the girl has gone to try and sell some stuff, and it turns out that this black market thing's owned by like a potential, well, not really a potential, more like an ex-boyfriend or something. She apparently only looked at him as like bail money and like gambling money and stuff, and he's jilted. So Indy crashes the bidding, and the Nazis crash the bidding as well. Everybody gets fighting over the Dial of Destiny once more, and in the end, the bad guys get away with it. Followed by Indy. I wish I could remember the girl's name now. It'll come to me probably after I make the video, but there's also a kid, apparently he has the same humble beginnings as Short Round, that the girl met him because he was like trying to steal her purse or something, or pocketbook, and I thought that was kind of neat. Like Indy met Short Round because Short Round was trying to pickpocket him and whatnot. Anyway, though, so they get into another chase, through the tiny crowded streets and alleys. They're in this like little three-wheeled car that can go through tight gaps, and they're trying to catch up with the bad guys. I'm just gonna call them the Nazis. Catch up with the Nazis who have the piece of the dial, and they're being chased by this guy that owned the auction that is the jilted fiance, lover, whatever you want to call it, of the girl, and they so there's chaos everywhere. In the end, they manage to lose the jilted lover, but they don't manage to quite get to the get the Nazis. They unfortunately get away again. So they instead end up going out to Greece, I think it is, because she's got some sort of knowledge of something. Like I think sorry, my thoughts are very all over the place. Like my head's just racing. They end up at the in Greece. I believe she had some knowledge that led to like the other half of the ship, where they find this tablet. They also find a whole bunch of eels, which are just as bad as snakes, and Indy gets attacked by them. That's horrible, whatnot. But they retrieve this tablet with writing on it. But the Nazis have caught back up. They kill Indy's friend, who's like a diver guy, and they capture the kid. But they eventually the girl reads them off what the tablet says, and then they use some dynamite to blow a hole in the boat, and they escape in the Nazis' boat, while the Nazis are left on the other boat that's now sinking, and they end up discovering that there's actually a hidden item inside the tablet that tells where to go next. So they follow that to Sicily, and from there make their way out to the Ear of Dionysus, I think, which is like a cave, because it's supposed to rest at the feet of something, and they end up getting there. But unfortunately, the kid gets captured by the Nazis, who ended up using binoculars to see they were going a different direction than what the tablet had said. So they capture the kid. Indy and the girl make it up to the cave, and they go through. There's this great bit where they're going into this tight cavern. There's bugs everywhere, and both Indy and the girl screaming like, "Get them off! Get them off!" And they eventually end up in this room with like toxic fumes, and they figure out, the trick of the trap in order to get them down to where Archimedes is resting, and they find the other half of the dial. But then the Nazis have shown up, and the kid was under guard by a Nazi, tried to escape. They cuffed him to another one, but they fell into the water. The kid was able to pickpocket the key, swim through a hole, and unlock his cuffs, while the other guy presumably drowned. So the Nazis are there. They get the dial. They shoot Indy and take him with them. And the girl and the kid, hop on a motorcycle and go after him. And they end up at an airfield, and the Nazis have both parts of the dial, or all three parts, actually, I should say. Oh, I should mention that Archimedes has like a wristwatch on him, and at first they're a little flummoxed, but they figure that he must have used the device to travel, but that's not really the case. So anyway, they travel, the Nazis are in, a bomber plane. The scientist, lead Nazi guy, dresses up in full Nazi gear because he intends to go back to the start of the war and kill Hitler and basically take over Hitler's role, but knowing all Hitler's mistakes so he can avoid them. So the girl ends up, riding the motorcycle, after the plane, and hops on the landing gear and gets inside. The kid, meanwhile, hotwires another plane and goes after him. The pilot's in that plane snoozing, but he eventually wakes up. The Nazis use the dial, and they travel to the past. At first, they think that they're going to 1939, but it turns out that they actually go back to Archimedes' time. In the fall of Syria, I think, or I forget, but it was some big historical thing, and Indy's still bleeding out from his wound, and there's a huge battle going on, against the Romans, and there's spears and things going through the air, and the Nazi plane gets damaged, and the girl ends up, dropping some of the Nazis out, and she and Indy, take a parachute and get ready to jump off. The main Nazi scientist guy tries to stop them, and the girl ends up shooting him, so he's his fate's pretty much sealed. Indy and the girl jump out, use the parachute to float down. Archimedes, meanwhile, like present day Archimedes, has seen this and is, going out because he recognizes that these things aren't from their, plane of existence or their time, if you will. The German plane crashes, killing them. Archimedes shows up, takes off the German guy's watch. So that's how Archimedes got the watch. That's pretty damn cool. And he ends up, coming across, Indy and the girl, and Indy wants to stay there. And the girl's like, no, you're going to muck things up, telling Archimedes to tell him to stay, not to stay, and they go with him. And eventually, she just punches him right in the fucking jaw and knocks his ass out, which is awesome. And presumably they made it back through, because obviously next time Indy wakes up, they're back in the present day. Back in Indy's house, the girl's taking care of him, and, Sala shows up with his grandkids, and Marion shows up, and she and Indy share a tender moment where, Marion's like, does it hurt? And he's like, everywhere. And then she's like, I know the feeling, I hurt too. And Indy's like, where? And she's like, here. Just like in the original movie. And then the credits swell, and well, actually, I shouldn't say the credits swell. Then they have one last scene where Indy's hat's hanging on a clothespin, and the iris is closing in on it, and then Indy reaches and pulls the hat back in like, nope, my hat. Kind of like what he did in Crystal Skull. Then the iris fully closes, the music swells up, and the credits roll. I'm sure I missed some things, but my God, it was such a roller coaster of a movie. Like, I laughed, I cried, I cheered, I jumped a couple times. Oh, it was perfect. It was everything we wanted Crystal Skull to have been. If they never make another Indiana Jones movie, it'll have ended perfectly. Like, don't muck it up by trying again. Indy has had his day, and it was a glorious sunset he's ridden into, so please don't mess that up. Like, he's gone out on a great note. Let us ride this high. If you want, give us, books or stuff, chronicling other stuff that he did. The action was great, the music was great, the effects were great. 10 out of 10. Like, this movie, you need to see it in the theaters, folks. It's really, really good. And this is coming from someone who, I loved Raiders, I loved Last Crusade, I liked Temple of Doom. Crystal Skull had its issues. I more or less hate it because of the fridge scene. If you could cut the fridge sequence out, I'd probably rate that movie around Temple of Doom status, but this one hit all the bells. It was nostalgic in the ways it needed to be. It had the callbacks that you wanted to see for the most part. Obviously, nothing referencing Marcus Brody or Indy's father, but since Crystal Skull's canon, then that movie mentioned that they had passed, so that's obviously the same here. I think it would have been nice to have maybe seen Short Round show up, or Willie Scott, though there was a great mention of Temple of Doom where Indy's like, you've never had to drink the blood of Kali, or have a voodoo doll of yourself stabbed. It's like, yay, callbacks! Done right. But definitely go see this movie, folks. I hope you enjoyed this review. I'm sure I missed some things. I'm going completely off of memory. I'm definitely going to have to see that movie again. I'm probably going to have to marathon all 5 movies once it's out on video, and I can do so. But until next time, this has been DMC Jedi Man, and I am signing off. Peace, everybody.